Well, if you work a 9 to 5, but your boss keeps calling you on your personal phone late into the evening, this is a reality many Americans face. But now a California bill is looking to prevent bosses from coercing workers into unpaid overtime and giving people the right to disconnect. Under the bill, workers will have the right to ignore phone calls and requests outside of their 8-hour working window without fear of retaliation. Employers will also have a legal obligation to outline working hours and guarantee workers uninterrupted time off outside of those hours. Jessica Kriegel is a chief scientist of workplace culture for Culture Partners, and she joins us now live. Jessica, this is such a fascinating topic. We're happy that you're here. You know, it appears those backing this legislation are trying to protect employees from negative experiences, which you could certainly argue is a good thing. But this issue really isn't a one-size-fits-all. Plus, you could argue compensation structures are built in part around employees who are willing to take on more responsibilities that don't have shut-off hours, so to speak. So what's your perspective on this? Should an employee be the one to have the power to say, hey, this is too much oversight, I'll find another job, versus the government mandating these practices?
Employees do have that ability now to say, hey, you guys are overbearing, I want to opt out. And they can walk away from any employment at any time. And that's what needs to keep happening, because this legislation doesn't make sense for organizations. CEOs everywhere are rolling their eyes right now because they know that this legislation isn't going to change the way that people think and act to get results at work. That's a culture issue. Culture is how people think and act, and that is the only thing that will change this work-life balance issue that's trying to get solved for. I think the people behind this legislation have their heart in the right place, but ultimately it will fail, as it has in Europe.
You know, and to your point, Jessica, if you take away a company leader's right to make these types of decisions, couldn't that backfire with too much regulation stifling growth, hurting the overall business, and then leading to employees being out of a job altogether?
Who is ultimately accountable for making sure that employees have work-life balance? It's everyone. It's the leadership at a company. It's also the employees at that company. I need to be able to say to my boss, hey, I need a break. Please give me some time off. And frankly, my boss doesn't call me on the weekends. If he does, I know that it was an accidental dial, because that's the culture that he's created for us at this company. If that's not what you have and it's something that you need, you can either speak up or you can walk away. Leaders also have to be accountable for creating a workplace culture that doesn't burn out their employees. And that is ultimately going to help drive results in the long run. And so we need to just do this ourselves.
You know, again, it appears this legislation is being proposed in good faith. So are there sections, Jessica, you believe generate productive conversations? What do you see as the overall chances of this passing?
I think there are a lot of people who love to lean into work. They love doing the off-hour extra effort because they're connected to the purpose of the organization that they work for. Their hearts and minds are in it, and that's because leaders have created a culture that drives results. What we've seen in Europe when this has been legislated is that people don't actually follow through. The only companies that actually allow people to disconnect are the ones that really lean into that by choice. So the legislation isn't going to move the needle. Ultimately, we want employees and employers to have thorough conversations about what's important and how to drive results that works for everyone.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. All right, Jessica Kriegel, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.